smoke covered the burned fields of Korath as the wind howled through what used to be a peaceful border village. The war had not been declared, not with words. It started with a single scream and a sky full of fire. No warning. No time to run. Only chaos. Captain Elias Dane, one of the few humans stationed on the alien world under the Peace Pact, had been on patrol when the explosions began. He wasn't a soldier anymore, not really. His orders were to observe, keep peace, document threats. But when fire tore through the village and the alien shrieks turned into pleas, his instincts overruled protocol. He rushed toward the flames, his boots crunching over glass like debris and bones. The scent of burning wood, flesh, and melting metal mixed into something unforgettable. Even through the noise, he heard it, a weak, broken cry from under a collapsed stone wall. He shoved aside the heavy slabs, ignoring the pain stabbing through his arms and back, until his fingers touched soft flesh. A girl. No, an alien girl. Barely older than 18 by human reckoning. Her skin shimmered faintly in the firelight. With a violet hue, her hair tangled with soot and ash. Her eyes, though. Her eyes were wide and silver, and they locked onto his face with fear, disbelief, and something deeper. Something old. He didn't ask who she was. He didn't ask why. She was here. He just carried her. As he sprinted through the burning ruins with her pressed tightly to his chest. Blaster shots lit the sky behind him. They weren't random. Someone was targeting survivors. He ducked behind an overturned transport pod, shielding her from the blasts as another explosion shook the ground. When the dust settled, the girl was shaking, not from pain, from shock. Elias tried speaking, but she grabbed his wrist with both hands, pulling herself closer. "You saved me," she whispered. "You don't understand what that means." He frowned, checking her for wounds. "You're alive. That's what matters." "No," she said, voice trembling. "Not here, not on Tovala. You saved my life during bloodshed. That means—" She didn't finish. The attack was over in minutes, but the aftermath would last. For years, Elias brought her to the recovery tent outside the burn zone, where other survivors were being sorted. He laid her down gently, but she wouldn't let go of his hand. Even as medical bots approached, she stared at him like he had just changed her destiny. She was identified as Lyratel, daughter of House Sivan, royal blood. One of the last daughters of a proud warrior house, now nearly wiped out. Word spread faster than fire. The humans didn't know the full meaning, but the Tavalans did. Elias was summoned by the elders within hours. He thought they would thank him, or interrogate him, or even punish him for interfering. Instead, he walked into a cold ceremonial hall lit with floating fire globes and lined with robed elders whose faces were unreadable. "You saved a daughter during a time of blood," the eldest among them said slowly. "By the old ways, that means you have claimed her." Elias blinked. "Claimed?" The elder stepped forward. "You have taken her life into your hands. By tradition, her purity, her union belongs to you." Elias froze. His pulse spiked. He looked around the room. No one laughed. No one corrected the elder. "This has to be a mistake," he said. "It is not," the elder replied. "It is ancient law, binding as breath. You may decline, but doing so dishonors her, her family, and by some, it would be taken as rejection or insult." Elias looked down at the girl kneeling beside him now. She had been cleaned, her wounds dressed, but her eyes were still on him, waiting, as if he held her entire world in his next breath. He looked back at the council. "I didn't ask for this, but you acted. And in doing so," the elder said solemnly, "you accepted what would come." He wanted to refuse. He wanted to say no. But deep down, something whispered this wasn't about tradition or rules. It was about survival, honor, culture. She had no one left. Her world had burned around her, and now he was the only one who stood between her and a fate worse than death, being discarded, shamed, or worse. Lyratel slowly reached out, placing her hand on his chest. "I won't force you," she said quietly. "But if you walk away, I have no name left, no future. Nothing." Elias looked at her face. Not just beautiful. Not just alien. She was young, scared, and carrying the weight of a fallen house. She had nothing left. Except him, and he didn't. Know why, but he couldn't walk away. The morning air was cold on the high ridges of Tevala. Mist clung to the jagged cliffs like a warning. Elias stood alone outside the ceremonial chamber, his arms crossed, eyes locked on the horizon. Behind him, voices murmured inside, preparing for a ritual he never believed he'd be part of one. That he didn't fully understand, he had barely slept. The words of the elder echoed in his head all night. "By the old ways, her purity is yours." It sounded brutal, even primitive. And yet, he could see it in her eyes. Lyratel accepted it, not as shame, but as duty. It wasn't about lust or passion. It was about meaning, bond, legacy. The door behind him creaked open. A young Tavalan priestess stepped out. Her long, pale tendrils moved slightly with the wind. "They are ready for you," she said with a small bow. Elias followed her in. The chamber had changed. It was no longer cold and formal, but dimly lit with warm, flickering flames and draped in dark silks. Incense curled through the air, and soft music from unseen strings echoed in the walls. At the center of the room stood Lyratel, clothed in a long flowing gown of soft crimson, edged in silver thread. She looked more alien now, more royal, and yet strangely fragile. Her hands were clasped in front of her. Her gaze never left his. Elias approached her, every step heavier than the last-robed elder spoke. "The ritual of the first union between House Sivan and the human protector shall begin. Witnessed by the flame, sealed by truth." Lyratel stepped forward and offered him a small ceremonial blade with both hands, the handle pointed toward him. Elias hesitated. "You must take it," she said softly, "or the bond cannot begin." He reached out slowly, taking the blade. It was warm, though it had no heat source. As soon as his fingers wrapped around it, the chamber seemed to darken slightly, like the room had taken a breath. Lyratel then pulled back her long sleeves and extended her wrist. Without flinching, she whispered, "Just a small cut, one line. The bond begins with shared blood." "Lyra." Elias's voice was low, unsure. "You don't have to do this. I could leave." "You could," she said. "And I would still be grateful, but I would also be alone. My people have rules. They're cruel sometimes, but they are also all I have left. Without this bond, I would be given away, or worse, used by a rival house to humiliate mine. You are the only one who saved me without asking for anything. That's why they chose you, because I chose you." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Elias's hand trembled. Then he nodded just once. He made the cut gently, not deep. A single red line. She didn't even wince. Then, before he could react, she took the same blade and pressed it gently to his palm, repeating the mark. The ritual was old, but the meaning was simple. Shared blood, shared fate. The elder stepped forward and held a glowing crystal between them. "It is done. From this day, he is your protector, your right, your chosen, and you are his first bond. This union is sacred." Elias watched Lyratel closely. Her breathing was uneven, her cheeks were flushed. Not from embarrassment, but from the weight of ceremony. She didn't move until the room was empty and silent again. Then she sat quietly on the edge of the platform, fingers touching the cut. On her wrist, Elias sat beside her. "You okay?" he asked. "I didn't expect to live past yesterday," she said. "Now, I don't know what comes next. I don't either. She looked at him. You're not angry? No, Elias said after a pause, just confused. You don't have to do anything else with me, she said. Not tonight. Not ever, unless you want to. The ritual binds me to you, not the other way around. Elias stared at the candlelight. That's not how humans do things. She tilted her head. Then how do humans do it? He smiled faintly. We usually ask a girl out for coffee first. Lyratel blinked, then laughed. It was the first real laugh since the attack. Light and strange, but real. I don't know what coffee is. She said, good, Elias replied. Then I guess we're both learning. Outside the chamber, soldiers were arriving. The war that began yesterday wasn't over. Other villages were hit. Tensions were rising. But inside that quiet room, between two survivors of different worlds, something ancient had begun, not with fire, but with choice. And neither of them knew yet how much it would cost. The days that followed moved strangely. Lyratel stayed close to Elias, like a shadow that didn't speak much. Not out of fear but caution. She was watching him, studying every small thing he did. How he fixed his gear, how he spoke to others, how he cleaned his rifle and left food untouched when others were starving. There was a silent question in her eyes each time she looked at him. Elias felt the weight of the ritual growing heavier. Outside the temple walls, the planet of Tavala was falling apart. The attack on Lyra's village wasn't an accident. It was the start of something bigger. Hostile clans, long silenced under the peace pact, had found new weapons, and strange ships were spotted in orbit, ships that didn't belong to either. Humans or T-Valens.Elias reported everything to the human outpost command, but got no reply. Their signal lines had been jammed for days. Someone was cutting off communication, piece by piece, and now Elias was caught in something he didn't understand. Not just war. Not just a strange marriage by blood, but something ancient and dangerous. Lyratel sat beside a small fire one evening as he returned from patrol. The skies above were clouded in dark red streaks, like blood smeared across the stars. She glanced up when he approached but didn't speak first. He sat across from her, setting down his gear with a heavy sigh. 3 more patrols ambushed. Today, no survivors. Whoever's behind this, they're good. Too good. She stared at the fire, voice quiet. You don't belong in this war. Neither do you. She gave a bitter smile. I was born into it. Elias looked at her for a long moment. Tell me what this really means. This bond. You act like it's sacred, but you also look like you're trapped. Lyratel paused, then looked him straight in the eye. It means I can't be touched by anyone else. It means no house, no warlord, no council can claim me. As long as you accept me, they can't use me. But if you reject me, even in silence, I become free game. Some may even accuse me of dishonoring the bond. They'd punish me for that. He clenched his jaw. So it's protection. It's survival. She leaned in slightly. But it's also something else. In our culture, it's believed that the one who claims a blooded daughter during wartime carries her fate and his own. You're not just my protector. You're bound to whatever happens next. That sounds like a curse. Lyratel didn't deny it. Maybe it is. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his cot, cleaning his rifle over and over again until his hands ached. His thoughts returned to Earth, to how far away it felt. The stars outside weren't his. The air smelled wrong. The gravity pulled differently. And yet somehow, this girl, this stranger, felt like the only familiar thing here now. Suddenly, a scream echoed from outside. He grabbed his weapon and rushed out. The camp was under attack. Dark figures slipped through the trees, taller than humans, armor shaped like bone, glowing red visors slicing through the mist. They weren't Tavalans. These were outsiders, mercenaries, raiders. Something worse? Explosions rocked the outer perimeter. Soldiers shouted in confusion. Elias darted through the chaos, heading back toward the shelter. He found Lyratel standing at the edge of the tent, blade drawn, eyes sharp. "You shouldn't be out here," he shouted. "You shouldn't have come back for me," she snapped. "Yeah, well, too late for that now." She moved quickly beside him, and they ducked behind the rocks near the edge of camp. One of the armored figures was scanning the area. Elias looked through the scope of his rifle. "This isn't just an attack," he muttered. "They're hunting someone. They're hunting me." Lyra's voice was calm, but her hands shook. "I am the last of House Sivan. They want me erased. You weren't supposed to be part of this." A beam of energy tore through the rock behind them. They ducked. "They'll kill everyone here if I stay," she said. "You're not leaving," Elias growled. "Not alone." He took a deep breath, checked his ammo, and then turned to her. "You said we're bound by blood now. That means I protect you. No matter what, you'll die," he smiled darkly. "Not before they do." And for the first time, Lyratel didn't look scared. She looked ready. The storm had come. The war had reached their doorstep. But this time, the girl wasn't running, and neither was the human who had claimed her fate. Asterisk. Smoke and fire turned the quiet Tavalin night into chaos. The alien mercenaries moved without sound, without mercy. Their armor shimmered with dark energy, phasing them in and out of vision. Elias fired into the shadows, knowing the shots wouldn't stop them for long. He ducked low, motioning for Lyratel to follow as they moved between shattered tents and smoldering wreckage. "Keep your head down," he whispered. "I'm not weak," she replied, blade gripped in both hands. "I never said you were," he said. "But they're not after me. They want you. That makes you the mission." More explosions shook the ground. A human soldier flew backward, his body smoking. Before it hit the ground, another turned and screamed only to vanish mid-shout, pulled into the shadows by something unseen. Elias cursed under his breath. They reached the outer ridge of the camp. The high cliffs gave them a partial view of the valley below. Dozens of mercenary figures moved like wolves in formation, methodically wiping out resistance. Elias tapped his communicator, but only static hissed back. "Nothing," he said. "They've cut all comms." Lyratel turned toward him, face pale in the glow of burning fires. "There's an escape route. A hidden tunnel in the eastern rocks used by my people long ago. If we reach it, we can disappear into the caves." "That's good," Elias said. "Then that's where we go." She touched his arm. "But they'll follow. If they find the tunnel, others will use it against the last safe regions of my people. The path leads straight to the temple city of Nodal." Elias understood. If the attackers learned of the passage, they'd slaughter whoever was left. His grip tightened on his rifle. "Then we don't let them follow." They moved fast through the edge of the cliffs, slipping down an old trail cut through stone and vine. Lyratel moved with surprising speed, guiding him with memory and instinct. She knew every turn of this mountain, every root, every loose stone. The hidden entrance was a narrow slit between two jagged rock faces, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Inside, the cave opened into winding darkness. They paused to breathe. "Light?" Elias asked. Lyratel touched a carved stone embedded in the wall. Soft blue light flared across ancient veins in the cave, revealing old murals, warriors, beasts, rituals carved deep into the walls. "This is the path of the chosen," she whispered. "Only bonded pairs may pass through this place." Elias raised a brow. "So if I hadn't gone through with the ritual, we wouldn't be alive right now." He didn't answer, just nodded, then gestured her forward. They walked for over an hour. The path narrowed, twisted, then opened into a great chamber carved from glowing crystal. The silence inside was thick, humming faintly like an old machine still alive. Stay here, Elias said, turning back toward the path. What are you doing? Lyratel stepped forward, slowing them down. She grabbed his arm. You can't fight them alone. No, he said, but I can buy time. You make it to the temple. You warn the others. Her voice cracked. We made a bond, I remember. Then don't leave me now. Elias looked at her. Really looked. The alien girl he saved from rubble, now covered in dirt and dried blood, with fire reflecting in her silver eyes, was more than just a ritual or tradition now. She was real, brave, and for some reason, his presence meant more to her than her. Own survival. He sighed. Then help me. They turned together, laying traps as they retreated toward the narrower tunnels. Explosives, smoke mines, signal confusers, anything Elias could rig from what remained of his field kit. Lyratel used sharp rocks and thin vine snares, setting up traps passed down by her ancestors. When the first enemy stepped into the tunnel, the rock floor erupted beneath him. Another fell to the side from a sudden collapsing wall. But more kept coming. Too many. Fall back. Elias shouted. They ran deeper into the cave, through a narrow crevice that forced them to crawl. Behind them, metal footsteps echoed like war drums. As they crawled, Elias's leg suddenly gave out. A sharp piece of shrapnel, he hadn't even noticed it had hit him earlier, now burned hot with infection. He stumbled, falling against the wall. Lyratel turned back and caught him before he dropped. You're bleeding. Yeah, he groaned. I noticed. Lean on me, she said. Now. They pushed through the final stretch, into a tunnel that widened again into a chamber filled with old guardian statues and broken relics. Beyond that was the final gate. It glowed faintly as they approached. Lyratel pressed her hand to the key. Gate crystal. Let us pass, she whispered. The gate flared and opened, just as the enemy voices rose behind them. She pulled him through. The gate closed with a crash of stone and silence, and for now, they were safe, but only for now. The gate sealed behind them with a grinding roar, locking out the war cries and echoing footsteps from the other side. Lyratel collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her hands trembled against the cold floor of the temple corridor. Elias leaned on the wall beside her, teeth clenched in pain, blood seeping through his torn pants. He sank to the ground. How far now? Not far, she whispered. The temple city is just beyond the crystal bridge, a day's walk. Maybe less if we don't stop. Elias laughed, but it came out dry. I don't think I've got a day in me. Lyratel crawled to him, tearing open his pant leg carefully. The wound on his thigh was worse than either of them had guessed, deep, angry, and dark. The infection was spreading. Her hands hovered over it helplessly. I can't fix this. Not here. He looked down at her. Then leave me here. Go warn your people. Let them prepare. No, her voice cracked. Don't ask that again. She stood suddenly and looked around the glowing chamber. The place was ancient, older than the war, older than the bond that tied them. Statues lined the walls, tall and elegant, depicting warriors and guardians holding glowing orbs. At the far end of the room, a central dais held something pulsing with low energy, an artifact made of polished stone and green crystal. Lyratel walked toward it slowly. She recognized it. My grandmother told me stories about this place. She said, this was where the first bond was made. Not just symbolic, real. The ancients had power, healing power. But it only worked for bonded pairs who truly accepted each other. Elias chuckled weakly. Sounds like a fairy tale. Maybe, she whispered. But it's the only thing we have. She turned toward him, her face pale with fear, but also something deeper, determination. If we perform the second binding, the old way, it might heal you. What does it involve? Lyratel hesitated. A surrender. Not just of the body, but of choice. We must accept each other completely. Mind, soul. The ritual doesn't allow lies. If your heart isn't open, it won't work. And if we fail, the backlash could kill us both. Elias looked at her long and hard. Then don't risk it. She dropped to her knees in front of him. You risked everything for me. When I had nothing, you carried me through fire. Now, it's my turn. He didn't speak. He only looked into her eyes. She was young, yes, but not weak, not helpless. There was a depth in her gaze, a knowing born from loss and survival. She wasn't doing this out of gratitude. She was choosing. Finally, Elias nodded. Tell me what to do. Lyra guided him to the center of the dais. The crystal glowed brighter as they stepped onto it. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through their bones. They knelt facing each other. She took both his hands in hers. Close your eyes. She whispered. As Elias obeyed, he felt warmth spread from their joined palms. The hum rose. A strange pressure filled the air. His heart pounded not from pain or fear, but from something ancient, something older than human memory. Lyra began to speak in her native tongue, words not meant for translation, words of old power. Her voice quivered at first, then grew. Stronger, more melodic. Elias felt his skin burn, glow with energy. His mind swirled with sudden images, her childhood, her laughter, her fear as her home burned. And deeper still, he saw her standing in that ritual chamber, alone and unwanted. Before she met him. At the same time, she saw through his eyes memories of earth, of battlefields and cold nights, of loss, of duty, and of the silent pain of living far from anything familiar. Their thoughts tangled. Their feelings bled into each other. Walls fell, and then white light, a brilliant flash, consumed the chamber. For a moment, neither of them existed in the physical world. Only a bond remained, glowing and unbreakable. When the light faded, Elias gasped and fell backward. The wound in his leg was gone. He sat up, breathless, and stared at Lyra. She was glowing faintly, beautifully. Her silver eyes locked onto his, and in them he saw no fear. Only relief. And something more than that. I don't feel like I'm dying anymore, he said. You're not. He looked around. The statues, once still, now hummed with energy. The path ahead began to glow. The temple city will accept you now. Lyra said. They will feel the bond. Elias stood and offered her his hand. Then let's finish this. They had crossed fire, blood, and ancient magic. Now bound by more than tradition, they were no longer two people surviving a war. They were one. And together, they were stronger than anything coming next. The temple city of Natal rose like a dream from the stone, a vast stretch of towers carved into the cliffs, glowing softly with bioluminescent veins that pulsed through the walls, like living veins under skin. Elias had never seen anything like it. He walked beside Lyra, still unsteady, his body healed, but his mind struggling to accept what had happened inside the chamber. At the gates, tall figures in ceremonial armor waited. Their skin bore the violet hue of Lyra's people, but their eyes were colder, hardened by suspicion and war. When they saw Elias, they drew weapons instantly. Human, one spat in the old tongue. He shouldn't be here. But Lyra stepped forward boldly, raising her hand. We are bonded by blood and soul. The ancient rite was completed in the chamber of crystal flame. If you challenge him, you challenge the first bond. The guards hesitated. Their eyes shifted to the glowing mark that had appeared on both her wrist and Elias's, the faded red of the initial wound, now replaced with a shimmering blue symbol that pulsed with life. Recognition passed between them, the weapons lowered. He may enter, the commander said stiffly. But the High Matron will decide his fate. The city beyond was beautiful but tense. Streets carved in spirals, bridges made of hardened crystal, banners torn from recent fighting. Everyone watched Elias as he walked. Whispers followed. Outsider, human, Bonded male. They reached the Hall of Voices before midday. A wide domed building where the leaders of Nodal once guided their people. Now it served as a war council. The high matron sat on an elevated seat at the far end. Her face was sharp, older, wise, but not unkind. Her robes were heavy with symbols of lineage. She studied Elias in silence, then finally spoke. You carry the mark of Sivan. You stand beside the last daughter of that house. Speak human. What do you want? Elias looked at her evenly. I want her safe, that's all. Murmurs echoed around the chamber. Some scoffed. Others listened closely. The matron narrowed her eyes. You risked your life for one girl. That is not normal for your kind. Why? He didn't answer right away. Then he simply said, because no one else did. That silenced the room. Lyratel stepped forward. This man did not ask for my bond. He didn't seek power or title. When my village was burning, he ran toward it. When I was hunted, he bled for me. And when I was ready to die, he gave me his strength. She turned toward Elias. By our law, he could have taken me. He didn't. He asked what I wanted. He listened. That is what makes him worthy. The matron tapped her fingers slowly. On the carved stone armrest. Perhaps, she said. But worthiness is not enough anymore. War is upon us. The clans are divided. The raiders who attacked you were not mercenaries. They are the Varnak. Ancient enemies thought extinct. Someone awakened them. Elias stepped forward. Then help me fight them. You? The matron asked. A single human? I've trained in combat my whole life. I know how they move, how they think. If the Varnak are involved, this isn't just a tribal war anymore. Someone's pulling strings, someone off-world. We have to find out who before they strike again. A younger warrior interrupted from the side. We cannot trust him. One man can't change the tide. He's not one man, Lyratel snapped. He is my bond. And by the old law, bonded pairs may lead together in times of war. The matron's eyes narrowed. You claim the rite of flame? I do, Lyra answered. I witnessed it. The bond was accepted by the crystals themselves. Denying him would be denying thee. Old ways, more gasps. The rite of flame had not been claimed in generations. Finally, the matron rose. Then so be it. By law and right, Elias Dane of Earth, bonded of Sivan, you are granted temporary command under our war council. You will lead a scouting party east into the ancient zones where the Varnak were once sealed. Find out who woke them. Stop this. Before it spreads, Elias bowed his head. I'll do it. As they left the hall, Lyratel walked close beside him. I didn't know if they'd accept it, she said. I just knew you wouldn't abandon us. He glanced sideways at her. You really believe in me? She stopped him gently with one hand on his arm. No, I believe in us. That night, the stars over Nodal glowed violet and red. The bond between human and alien had shaken 1,000 years of tradition, and yet it was only the beginning. The real enemy was still out there, watching, waiting, and war was coming faster than anyone could prepare. The wind howled across the ancient valley as Elias crouched behind a fallen pillar, rifle steady in his hands. Beside him, Lyratel pressed a glowing hand against a scanning crystal embedded in the rock. The ruins were cold, silent too silent. They had traveled for 2 days through broken lands, across tunnels, and past crumbling temples no longer marked on maps. This place had been forbidden for centuries. Now it was alive again. The Varnak hadn't just returned, they had been waiting. A soft hum pulsed through the stone as the crystal unlocked. A massive stone gate creaked open, revealing a wide chamber beneath the earth. The smell of metal and decay poured out. This was a prison, Lyratel whispered. Not a temple. The Varnak weren't killed. They were sealed away. Elias tightened his grip on the rifle. And someone opened the door. They moved cautiously into the chamber, shadows dancing along the jagged walls. Giant pods lined the floor, half broken, half alive. Inside them were bodies, humanoid but twisted, stretched by cybernetic implants and dark biotech. Not dead, not sleeping, harvested. Liratel's voice trembled. They were building an army here, growing it. From the far end of the chamber came a deep, echoing sound, half growl, half machine. Elias turned, aiming his weapon. But it wasn't a Varnak. It was a human, older, worn, his skin pale under armor shaped with alien technology. One eye replaced with a red glowing lens. A traitor. One of the old scientists who had vanished during the border wars. I knew someone would come, the man rasped. But I never expected it would be you. Elias stepped forward slowly. You woke them? The man chuckled. No, I perfected them. Tavalans and humans alike wasted years in peace talks and shallow traditions. But war is honest, pure. These creatures are the future. Liratel stepped in front of Elias. You don't understand what you've done. The Varnak were never just soldiers. They consume worlds. You can't control them. But I can, the man said, lifting a device with pulsing red lights. They answer to me now, Elias fired. The device shattered in the man's hand. He stumbled, blood spilling from his palm, eyes wide. I've seen what your peace brings, Elias said coldly. Starving colonies, forgotten treaties. Girls burned in their homes while the council argues over law. That's why I stayed. That's why I didn't walk away from her. He looked at Liratel. Her eyes shone with tears, not fear, but rage. The traitor pulled a detonator from his belt. Then die with your ideals, he pressed it. Nothing happened. Behind him, one of the half-sleeping pods opened. The creature inside slithered forward, not toward Elias, not toward Lyra, toward the traitor. No, the man whispered. I control you. The Varnak lunged. The screams were short. Elias grabbed Lyra's hand. We have to go, now. They ran as the pods around them began to hiss and shake, ancient systems waking. The seal had been disturbed. The hive was waking early. They reached the outer cliff as the ground rumbled, and the cave began to collapse. Elias activated his beacon, now reconnected to orbit. This is Elias Dane to human command target site. Confirmed. Coordinates locked. Fire everything. He grabbed Liratel and covered her as the sky above them opened with fire. Blue light streaked from orbit, vaporizing the valley, the chamber, and everything inside. The blast wave knocked them flat. When silence returned, only ash and glass remained where the prison had been. Later, back in Natal, the War Council stood in solemn quiet. The matron stepped forward. The bond between Elias and Liratel saved not just her life, but all of ours. This was no ordinary union. This was fate. Elias didn't speak. He only reached for Lyra's hand. She gripped it tightly. The war would not end in a single day, but peace would never again be shaped by cold politics or tradition alone. It would be shaped by choice, by sacrifice, by bonds born not of power, but of trust. And somewhere, far beyond two worlds, that trust had become legend.